Hi there, Tracy again, artist in residence for Imagine Crafts. In today's video, we are working on stamping on fabric. So we'll go ahead and jump right into the video, but before we do, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. Let's jump right in. So I have here the supplies I'm going to use. I'll be using VersaFine Clear ink in multiple colors. I've got multiple different kinds of stamps. I've got some Kraft paper, which is about 120 pounds. I've got some white paper that's about 120 pounds. And I have here some muslin fabric. And I have two different colors. I have my PVA glue in a little cup and a little silicone brush. And I have a kind of a bluish white muslin, and I have a coffee dyed muslin. I'm going to start with the bluish white, and I'm going to do just one of these on camera. So what I'm doing here is I'm choosing a frame, and I'm going to cut down my paper to 4x3, I think. And I need to cut two of those, and I end up losing one of them. You know how it goes. You do something, and then you lose it. So first things first, I need to go ahead and decide which square frame I want to use. I want to do this kind of like a Polaroid, and I do want to decorate the bottom. So these I use for my junk journals, by the way, just to kind of let you know. And what I'm doing here is I'm trimming down the muslin, so it's about a 1/2 inch bigger than my paper. And I have actually ironed or pressed this muslin and added some starch, spray starch to it, so it's stiff. And it's a real super light blue, a subtle light blue. So I'm going to grab this little floral stamp, and I decide I want tiny all over florals, and I'm going to use the Green Oasis in the VersaFine Clear. And I'm just going to saturate my stamp here, and yes, it goes beyond my little piece of muslin, but that's okay because, yeah, it cleans off, no problem. I'm just stamping it down. So you can stamp on fabric. There's some things like you don't want to get it too wet or it will muddy it out. This ink handles water, but I've played with it, and totally saturating it does kind of muddy it out a little bit. So we've got a nice little pretty green floral going on here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue here, and this is just bookbinding glue, PVA. It's by Linico, and I'm just painting my glue on with my silicone brush. You could use any brush, but I like using my silicone brush because I don't have to wash it. I can leave it sit there and it won't hurt it, whereas other brushes, you've got to wash them right away. I'm just going to glue my stamped fabric down, and I'm going to let that dry completely. And I do help it along with a little heat tool time to time. So we'll do this one on camera, but I have 3 to show you, and I'm going to show them to you before and after I put them in my junk journal. So this is typically what I would use them for, is for my junk journals, but you could also put them in a scrapbook. You could hang them individually. You could make them into an ornament if you do something nice on the back too. The backs of mine don't look so pretty, but that's okay because they're getting glued down into a journal. So I'm looking at my inks, and I'm thinking, I better stick with the VersaFine. So I'm going to grab a couple of different ones. I'm going to grab I'm looking for the color because I have these sort of sitting in the sun, and so this one faded out. So this color is Cheerful, and I'm just going to grab one of my brush sticks, and I'm just going to make little yellow dots, and they're kind of hard to see on camera, but I'm just kind of doing the resemblance of flowers on here. And I decided to go with a second color as well because I feel like I need more color. That's just me. My channel name is Not Afraid of Color. So I'm going to grab this Arctic here. And I grabbed the wrong brush sticks. This one's kind of hard. I think I used it on something else. There we go. I'll grab the right one. Love these things. And I'm just making random little dots. Again, I'm just trying to make this look like kind of an abstract floral. And I'm not too worried about the middle because that's the part I'm going to be cutting out with my die. Okay, and so I'm going to do a couple of more stamps on here, and I think I'm going to stick with the Arctic just to kind of give this a mixed media feel. Okay, or I'm going to use the Green Oasis. And I'll go ahead and stamp that little kind of label down, just down here in the corner. And I do most of my junk journal stuff, I do it collage style. So I'm kind of doing collage style stamping as well. And let's see here, let's grab a number. And I think I'll go in here with First Fine Clair and Acorn just for a change. And I'll stamp this little number set here. Because believe it or not, I am going to end up making this look rustic. Now, how it looks depends on the color of paper you set it down on and how much inking you do. So I'm going to grab this little circle-y stamp and do it here up at the top. And that's all the stamping I'm going to do on it. Now what I want to do is I want to cut out my aperture here for the frame. So I'm just going to tape that down. I'm going to take it over to my Vagabond and get it cut out. And I keep the square, and you'll see why later. And now I'm going to trim this muslin down to about 1/8 of an inch around each side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fray the edges of this muslin, and I'll show you how I do it. And I think I ended up speeding this up quite a bit, but I'm just pulling strings out individually until it frays. And you don't have to do this. You can hem it. You can sew these. I thought about sewing them. I do sew some of my stuff for my journal, but just didn't feel like digging out my sewing machine. One of these days I'll have it set up where I don't have to dig it out, but for now it's got to be dug out, and I just didn't want to. So, but they look really cool with stitching on them too. But they'll stick just fine with the bookbinding glue. I'm just kind of fraying these up. I'm using my pointy end tweezers, which are, by the way, the extension of my own hand. I can't hardly work without them. And then I'm going to take the Acorn ink, and I'm just going to edge the whole thing. And I'll edge the outside and the inside of the frame, just with a foam pad. And then I'm going to edge this piece right here because we're going to be using that. So, next thing I'm going to do is find my punch. And I'm going to use a punch to punch a hole because I'm going to make that little square tab style. But I have to trim down another piece of paper because I lost my piece of paper. And I'm just going to kind of back that a little bit with what's left on my sponge. And then I'm going to take some thin foam tape, and I'm going to foam around 3 sides all the way to the edge, and then just put a little bit more foam on the bottom so that it's, you know, supported down there. And then I'm going to use some liquid glue because this particular foam tape doesn't have glue on the other side. I'm just going to stick that down to the backer, just like so. And this little piece, we're going to punch that out, and I've got this fun little, I don't know what you call these kind of punches, but I'm going to punch that out, and I'm just going to take some of the leftovers that I trimmed off, and I'm going to string it through there, and then wrap another piece of scrap string around there, and this C will fit right down into there, and then it can be pulled in and out, and you can put a picture or whatever, and here's an example of the first one I did. So that one's done, except for I want to do some decorating, so I'm going to grab some of my ephemera here. And I've just got an assortment of ephemera, a ton of it. If you're a junk journaler or you're thinking about junk journaling, be ready because you're going to collect so much of this. And for instance, that little blue stamp was stamped with the Bluebell ink as well. And I'm going to take the Bluebell ink here, and I'm going to ink up this little piece of scrap from the muslin that I used on the very same frame, just with a brush. And use that as part of the ephemera kind of fodder. Now I'm going to grab a little piece of cheesecloth that I've coffee dyed. And I'm just going to lay this down. And again, I'm doing this whole thing kind of collage style. Mixed media, let's have fun. I'll go ahead and edge things with whatever's left on my little foam pad. And then get these pieces glued down. So we're kind of sticking with the kind of blue and greens. And then plop a little red on there to pull down that acorn ink because it's got a reddish undertone. And that's it, finished. Now here's the 3 that I've done, and I've added pictures to them. And these are just little Tim Holtz paper dolls. You could do stuff on the back. You could journal on the back, whatever you wanted to do. We'll get this slid back down in there. And then this is the one I've done on Kraft paper with kind of, more rustic colors. And then I did this teeny tiny one, and I added, embellishments, just stuff from my stash. You can just pile stuff on. And so that one was done with the craft paper, and this was done on some pink heavy stock. And it's got this cute little Victorian girl, but it's really tiny. And you think, well, that's, real small. What are you going to do with that? Well, you're going to see when I show these to you inside my journal. So I felt like it was important to kind of give you an idea how to work these. So here's the one with the couple, the one that we made on camera, and I've just put it on one of my pages and backed it with some ephemera and fun stuff, so we can still pull our little picture out. And so that basically completes that page. And here's the little tiny one, and I've just kind of built her as part of a structure on a page. And then finally, here's the two ladies, and I have that glued down just on two corners so that it's a pocket. So that's it. That's how to stamp on fabric and make something fun and creative for your junk journals or your scrapbooks, or however you want to do, however you want to use these. You can have fun with it. And you don't have to use muslin fabric. You can use any fabric, but this is what I used. So I hope you like this video. If you do, please leave us a thumbs up. And thank you so much for stopping by. Here's some still images to get you going, and I hope you have an amazing summer and day. Take care. Bye-bye.